Hello, everybody, and welcome to Commodity Culture, where our goal is to make you a better investor in the commodities space. My name is Jesse Day. Before we dive in, standard disclaimer: nothing here is investment advice. Do your own due diligence. And today's guest is the owner of ARC Silver Gold Osmium, a company whose mission is to understand your reasons for purchasing precious metals by providing a personal touch when it comes to customer relationships. He is also an expert on the precious metals space. It's Ian Everard. Welcome to the show.
Hi there, Jesse. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Now, we have to start by discussing gold. Obviously, big story, trading at all-time nominal highs in US dollar terms, but something that's been very exciting nonetheless for those invested in the gold space. Give us your thoughts on gold's rise here and how you see the gold market performing and playing out for the rest of the year.
I would say gold is actually late to the party. And as you said, nominal highs, if you start inflation adjusting, it's doing okay, but it has a long way to go. I don't think the worldwide currency debasement has filtered through yet. One reason being the world has never tried it worldwide. We've had single nations like Germany during the Weimar Republic. They debased their currency till it was worthless. So, what's the interconnectivity? If every major nation is debasing their currency at once, I think that can mask the effects of that because the average investor, the average person is less aware. If the dollar is 104 on the DX and okay, the dollar's gaining strength. So, people are looking at currencies compared to each other, they're not realizing that they're all falling. So I think gold has a long way to go yet to even begin to account for the currency debasement. When you look at the units of currency, I think the figure is $83 trillion of broad money worldwide. That's an incredible stack of dollars.
Right. So gold's best days still lie ahead, in your view. I wonder if you have any thoughts on the gold mining sector at the moment, because although you've said that you still think gold has a long ways to go, the miners are very undervalued compared to the metal itself. So I'm wondering if you think there's opportunity there at the moment.
Yes, I mean, it's something I haven't studied in depth. I've sort of kept a half an eye on it since I've been working precious metals since 2017. And it does seem they are an absolute bargain. I mean, they're mining money. It's like, and they sell it for currency. And yeah, it's hard to comprehend. I mean, it was J.P. Morgan said, wasn't it? Give me the right to create the currency, and I don't care what the laws are. Theoretically, the companies that mine money should have the most power in the world, but they seem to be pushed around and manipulated. So I'm not sure, but they're not. No, they're not reflecting their true value.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it. I've never heard someone put it that way, that they are mining money. That is very true. Um, I want to talk about silver because this is a metal that has disappointed a lot of stackers. Pretty lackluster performance in the past few years. Last time it hit an all-time high was around 2011. Now, you posted on Twitter recently that you think we could see the gap in the gold to silver ratio start to close at some point here. So break that down for us.
Whoa, a quick dive into history, I guess. So 1816, England came off the silver standard, went on to the gold standard. 1861, Germany did the same. And then by 1873, Europe had come to America and persuaded America to come off the silver standard. So that pushed silver into a commodity, not money, and that basically drove up the purchasing power of gold. That stretched the ratio. And even though supposedly the monetary ratio stayed at initially 15 to 1, when it was adjusted to 16 to 1, that is now stretched to, I think we're running about 89 as we speak to 1. 15 to 1 historically goes back to, I think it was Isaac Newton. He proposed that because that's what he observed as the abundance in the earth crust. So other figures are 20 to 1. I know Keith Newmar has said he thinks the mining ratio is 7 to 8 to 1. So for every ounce of gold, 7 to 8 ounces of silver are mined. Then bear in mind that a lot of that silver is destroyed or tied up for a long time. It could be in a solar panel for 40 years. It could be in construction materials for decades. So a lot of the silver that we're mining is not available and may never be available if we never recycle it. So the true ratio could be 5, 6 to 1, maybe. But that's a long way to go. Will it snap back that far? I think we will see within 2 to 3 years 15, 20 to 1 again.
Very interesting. Now, I want to pull on a thread there concerning silver's industrial demand. You mentioned solar panels there as one example. I wonder how much of an impact industrial demand has on the price of silver in your view. And do you think we're going to see more and more use of silver for industrial purposes with this push for renewable energy, solar panels, etc.?
Yes, I mean just basically solar. As we're rediscovering ways of storing electricity, I mean like the vanadium flow battery, very robust, very cost effective over long term, used in Canada widely. If you pair that with solar, this is probably the cheapest form of energy the world has ever seen. I mean, we were told it was going to be nuclear. I remember my dad telling me electricity will be too cheap. They won't even bother metering it. That's not happened. So the demand for solar, figures I've seen, could take more than twice the physical amount of silver that is in existence, ready to use, potentially ready to use. That's just one use. Then you add the military, the medical, the scientific, the space, nearly 10,000 uses now for silver, and very little substitution. Especially at the current price, you're not going to substitute gold for silver to get nearly as good conductivity. It's incredibly useful as a solder in electrical components, heat sinks. So the uses are just growing, and importantly, most of those uses are price inelastic. Doesn't really matter what the price is; that demand will carry on growing. If an iPhone has 50 cents or $1 worth of silver in, and silver is now 10 times, Apple is still going to pay the $2.50 for that silver and still make their $1,000 phone. And then at the same time, the supply is inelastic. It's incredibly hard and expensive, and it's a long journey to get a silver mine into production. And then if you look at the bulk of the silver supply is byproduct from zinc, copper, lead, and gold mining. You're not necessarily going to, who would double their copper production to get a bit more silver? That's just not going to happen until silver really finds a new level. Then potentially at some point a copper mine could become a silver mine. I guess that, but we're not there yet. So the supply is inelastic, the demand is inelastic. We're running a deficit. So there must be 20, 30, 40 tailwinds behind silver.
Yes. Now, I want to discuss platinum because this is a metal that is not talked about enough, in my view. How do you see the current setup for platinum?
It's incredibly rare, 30 to 40 times more rare than gold. It has many more uses, I understand, than gold does. It's an excellent refractory metal. It stores hydrogen very well, so it could be a key metal in hydrogen fuel cell technology. Has extensive uses in chemical research, in refinery processes, temperature sensors, just on, and along with palladium. I think it's incredibly undervalued. As for bullion, it's a big spread, the bid-ask price. The premiums are very high. I think it should be a small percentage of precious metals stack for sure, but I wouldn't go too heavily on platinum.
Well, you brought up premiums. I'd like to kind of just circle back to silver here. And I wonder, from your perspective as the owner of ARC Silver Gold Osmium, what are you seeing out there right now in regards to silver premiums? And What is a way that a stacker can maybe reduce their cost on a premium when they're purchasing silver bullion?
Make friends with your dealer. That's number one. Be friendly, be polite, be loyal. My loyal customers, their premiums keep on getting better, because I view a client retained as a client gained. It's a lot less work to retain a client than to find a new one. Um, it's a huge range. It's a wild west out there. The range of premiums are just huge. I mean, I can give some examples. The lowest premium product at the moment is the 1,000 ounce bar. The wholesale premium is 30 cents. When we started 4 years ago, we promoted them because they were a low premium option, whereas all the other retailers were trying to scare people away from them. I think premiums have bottomed out. We've seen 3 rises wholesale on the American Silver Eagle, so that will start to pull on the other sovereign coins. And we're also at that time of year where we're switching from the 2023s into the 2024s. So as soon as the wholesalers have finished clearing their 2023s, we're going to see a 30, 40 cents jump in effect on the sovereign coins. But yeah, generally overall premiums are the lowest we've seen them in 4 years.
Well, I would also like to discuss, I just said that platinum was a metal not often discussed. Osmium is a metal that's really not often discussed. And I was talking with my friend Jay Martin, who hosts a show on YouTube on the commodity space. He runs the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference. And when I told him about ARC and that you sell osmium, he had never even heard of it before. And I was scarcely aware of it before I spoke to you the first time. So let's start off with the basics. What is osmium? What is it important for people to know about that particular metal?
So osmium is the 8th and final precious metal. We're not going to discover another one. It was first isolated late 1803, early 1804 by 2 British scientists. Incredibly rare. It was used experimentally in light bulb filaments, but it was incredibly expensive, so that never really took off. Its scarcity has been its Achilles heel. It's so scarce that any modest industrial use, there would not be enough of it to fulfill that use. So therefore, the raw metal has had little value, and you can still buy in the raw form a pretty low price per ounce. I discovered osmium at the New Orleans Investment Conference in 2022. I was there selling precious metals, and I met the Osmium Institute representatives. And when they described me all the features of osmium in the crystalline form, it just rang every bell of just an incredible long-term tangible asset that's compact, genuinely scarce, unforgeable. It's the densest element in the crystalline form. Every square millimeter of the surface has 10,000 more recognition points than your fingerprint just from a photograph, let alone a scan. And it's incredibly beautiful. I have a piece. I can grab a piece.
Yes, please.
I don't know, that will show up. You really need sunlight on it. That's catching a bit of the
Yeah,
sun.
it's sparkling. And how much osmium is that?
That's about $76,000, that piece.
Wow.
So it's about 30 times more expensive than gold by weight, but it's 1,500 times more rare. The practical amount that's going to be available for converting into the crystalline form is about a cubic meter, so around 23 tons. The average thickness is about third of a millimeter, roughly, to half a millimeter. So if you do a bit of rough math, I think it works out about they're going to produce about 4,000 square yards surface area of this. And then it's practically gone. That will be the world's reserves used up, and then only a trickle, half a ton or so a year thereafter. So when I learned all of these things, I I was like, oh my gosh, I need to get some of this. So I actually bought the ring off the vice president's finger and the pendant off her neck on the spot at the conference because they didn't have anything to sell. They weren't allowed to sell the samples they brought in. So since then, we've become the first US retailer. And it is a great pairing with silver. I mean, I think silver is the best opportunity at the moment, but the crystalline osmium is just that little bit better and incredibly beautiful. It's making incredible, beautiful jewelry. I think I have here's an example of a Swiss watch with an osmium face.
Wow.
So it's getting used for some high-end applications, but it's still affordable. The smallest pieces start around $22.
And how much in weight is that, a $22 piece of osmium? It must be a pretty tiny, right?
Oh my gosh, we have to do the math. I mean, that's
It's small, right?
0.015 grams.
Wow. And so for people who are purchasing osmium, is this does it serve a similar kind of store of wealth function as gold or silver? Are people buying it as an investment that they, in the case of it appreciating in value moving forward? What's the main reason that someone would want to own osmium generally?
The Osmium Institute brought the crystalline form to market just over 10 years ago. They've been tracking the spot price since January 2017. Then it was trading around $560, $570 a gram. We're now around $1,430 a gram. So it's gaining about 15% a year pretty consistently. It's a nice, steady chart. And notably, nothing dramatic happened in 2020 when silver went down to 11 and everything just crashed. Oil went negative. Osmium just kept chugging along. The company has a natural monopoly in retailing it and processing it, and the Swiss company that spent 40 years working out how to crystallize it have a natural monopoly. So there's no competitor and there's no bourse. It's not traded as a commodity. So there's no volatility caused by paper trading. But going back to one of your questions there, the initial purchasers were European family offices were buying the discs up like it was running out, and it is running out. But now it's really expanding into the jewelry world. I mean, they do 250 different shapes. So you get these beautiful droplet shapes. It's nearly ready-made jewelry. Some pieces you need to do very little goldsmith work on it, and you've got a beautiful, unique piece of the rarest non-radioactive element in the known universe, let alone on Earth. So it's that scarcity value is hard to grasp. And what is happening now is a demand is being created for it. So you pair that with absolute scarcity, we're going to see some good price action, in my opinion.
Yeah, and when I was speaking with you about osmium last time we chatted, you mentioned something about its ownership being recorded in a certain way that kind of made it similar to a Bitcoin-like asset as well. Could you explain that to us?
Most pieces come in a box like this with a QR code and an alphanumerical reference number. That is stored on the Osmium database. So when you purchase a piece, you get an ownership change code, an OCC. And now only the holder of that code can change ownership of that piece. So the database is highly secure, and the only information you put in is a valid email to receive the ownership code. But added to that layer of security, like I said earlier, every square millimeter, so almost every sparkle on there,
Yeah.
is multiple hexagonal crystals layered up and layered up. So literally, the size of that pen tip is about a square millimeter. There's 10,000 more recognition points than your fingerprint on there. So each piece, as they cut it, weigh it, catalog it, enter it into the system, has high resolution 2D photographs as well. So you can identify your piece by sight, as well as the codes and as well as the ownership codes. So there's a multi-layer authentication. and each piece has a birth date. As it's entered into the system, it gets a timestamp. It's I can't think there's anything more secure actually as a store of wealth.
Yeah, that is very fascinating. Just mind-boggling discovering osmium for myself when I first heard about it, and just hearing you speak about it now, very fascinating. Why don't you tell us more about ARC Silver Gold Osmium? What makes your business different from other precious metals dealers out there?
We're passionate about it. I started buying silver 2017 when I really discovered what fiat currency were and what the central banks are doing and what the Bank of International Settlement is, where they came from. The history is frightening, and the future is frightening financially. I can see huge financial repression coming, unrealized gains taxation, wealth taxes. They're coming. So I would start talking to friends and family, and they would start buying quite heavily. And some from having never even really heard of precious metals as insurance or as an investment. And so 2020 we started ARC, and we just love meeting people, getting to know what they've got at the moment, what their objectives are, what their timescale are, and we can help steer them to the product we believe will give them the best gain and the best security for what they're trying to achieve. And in doing so, we've become highly competitive. Even in it's a really competitive time moment, but we can still beat anyone in the US on silver prices.
Well, I'm going to put the number and the email for ARC Silver Gold Osmium on screen. People can get in touch with you directly, which is great. They can also visit your retail location in Jackson, Wyoming. And I'll also put a link to the website in the description below so people can have a look at what you've got available. I'd like to wrap here by opening the floor to you to talk about anything you think is important, whether you want to talk some more about ARC Silver Gold Osmium, the precious metals space, or anything else that's on your mind.
I think the reasons to buy real tangible assets now are imperative. And with the huge amount of currency that's in existence, it doesn't mean anything till it's purchased something. It's potentially a claim to buy something in the future. There's very little we can do now in the Western world that's private. If it's real estate, stock, shares, bond, mining shares, it's a government can come in and do all sorts of oppressive things. I mean, the US government could declare silver a military critical metal and take over all of the mines in the US and stop silver being available as retail. I mean, we saw that the Polish mint a while back said, we're not selling to retail. I don't know if they started up again. So I think we have a privilege in the US and a window of opportunity. Anybody who earns dollars has dollars. We can convert that into real money at incredibly favorable rates historically and secure privacy. And the value of privacy of some stored wealth outside of the system, it's like taking your winnings out of the casino and managing to leave the casino without getting mugged on the way out. You know, historically, big winners in a casino will have their winnings taken off them even if they're leaving the door. So we are in a casino financially. The trillions of dollars that exist do not convert into real things at the current prices of real things. And silver is such a tiny, tiny market, 800 million ounces mine production a year. That's 1/8 of 1 ounce. So that's that's a quarter ounce coin. Cut that in half. That's the annual allocation per person on the planet. Yet we treat it like it's aluminum or copper and it's never going to run out. The slightest move towards silver, it's going to be unavailable for the retail buyer. So now's the time to put a few percent of your wealth into it. The downside is, well, there isn't a downside if you're patient. The upside is personal freedom, financial security, the ability to pay property taxes, endless upsides. So for somebody to ignore it, it's I guess most people have to ignore it because there's not enough to go around for everybody. Even if it was 10 times the price, there's still not enough for everybody to have a few ounces. So, yeah, it's if you haven't got a position in precious metals, at least do some research. At least have a look at what happens in countries where the currencies die, because the dollar will die. Not yet. It will probably be the last currency to die. So we've got a bit more time than other countries. But you look at what's happening in Zimbabwe, Turkey, or you look at what happened in Russia when they did a tenfold debasement overnight. There was a guy who'd been saving for years to buy a motorcycle. After the debasement, I think he bought some cigarettes. It's will it happen as rapidly in the US? Possibly not in the overall purchasing power of the dollar, but it will happen in the ability to buy precious metals. We will see much, much higher prices in dollar terms.
Yes, and I think the main function for me personally is just removing my wealth from the financial system, removing it from counterparty risk, where I literally have wealth stored in a metal that I get to hold in my own hand. There's no better feeling in my view for myself. Well, Ian, it's been an awesome conversation. Thank you so much for coming on. Like I said, I do have the number and email on screen right now for those who want to reach out. And the website will be in the description below. ARC Silver Gold Osmium is sponsoring the channel as well at the moment. And, you're a real passionate individual with a great wealth of knowledge in the sector. So it's a great honor to have somebody like you and ARC Silver Gold Osmium sponsor the channel. So thank you for that. And looking forward to catching up again soon.
Thank you, Jesse.
Commodity Culture is a series on commodities and natural resources. If you would like to see more, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you're always up to date with the latest episodes.